everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on sentences, fragments, and run ons. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once you've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts, grade 7. And then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the chapter of sentences, fragments, and run-ons. All right. So we said our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. Our subject is English Language Arts. Grade 7. And the lessons that we are focusing on is it a complete sentence or a fragment? And is it a complete sentence or a run-on? All right. So when it comes to sentences, fragments, and run-ons, right? A sentence is a group of words and it forms a complete sentence, a complete thought, right? So once again, a sentence, it is a group of words that forms a complete thought. And before we even continue, remember a sentence starts with a capital letter and it ends with an endpoint, whether it is a period, exclamation mark, or a question mark, right? And with a sentence, right, A sentence has both a subject and a sentence has a verb, right? So a sentence has a subject and a sentence has a verb. And if we look at an example of a sentence, right? And then it says, my friends walk along the path. So my friends walk along the path, which means that if we were to identify our subject, right, then it is friends or my friends, and the verb is walk, right? Which means that within that sentence, it has both a subject as well as a verb, right? And that basically forms a complete thought. And also, as you can see, the sentence starts with a capital letter and it ends with its end mark. All right. And then we have a sentence fragment, right? And a sentence fragment, it is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. So a sentence fragment, it is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. And with the sentence fragment, right, because it does not complete a, it does not form a complete thought, right? A sentence fragment, it's usually missing a subject. So it's either missing a subject, or it is missing a verb, or it is missing a helping verb. So a sentence fragment, once again, is a group of words that does not express a complete thought, right? So if it doesn't express a complete thought, then it's missing either a subject, or it is missing a verb, or it is missing a helping verb. And if we look at an example, right, or if we look at examples, it says know the answer. So know the knows the answer. And if we look at that example, right? And then if we were to identify, remember we said that a sentence expresses a complete thought, right? So it needs to have a subject and it needs to have a verb in order to show that it is a complete sentence. And if it doesn't express a complete sentence, then it's a fragment because it is either missing a subject, a verb, or a helping verb, right? So knows, right? That is a verb, right? So that is a verb, which means that the sentence fragment or the sentence specifically, right, it is missing a subject. So it is missing a subject because knows is a verb. All right. And if we look at the next one, it says the bright red car. The bright red car. And if we look at that sentence, right, it's not telling us what the bright red car is doing, right? Which means that car is our subject, right? Which means that it is missing a verb. And then the next one is we skiing next week. We skiing next week, right? And if we look at that sentence, right, that sentence is missing a helping verb, right? Because over here it is missing the helping verb. So the helping verb is missing, right? So that is a sentence fragment. Because remember, we said sentence fragment, it either is missing a subject, or it's missing a verb, or it's missing a helping verb. And a sentence fragment is a group of words that does not express a complete thought. And then once again, we have a sentence, right? And a sentence is a group of words that forms a complete sentence, right? It has a subject and it has a verb. All right, so now we're going to find out what a run on sentence is, right? A run on sentence. And a run on sentence, right? It is made up of either two independent clauses that are joined without end punctuation or basically just with a comma, right? So a run on sentence is made up of two independent clauses that are joined without the end punctuation or with just a comma. All right, and if we look at an example, right, here we have two examples of run on sentences. It says, I knocked on the door, it opened, right? And the next one is, it started raining, we ran inside. And if you look at that two sentences, right, the first sentence, I knocked on the door, it opened, that sentence basically is two independent clauses, right, that is joined without an in punctuation, right? So that is joined without an in punctuation. And when it is joined without an in punctuation, we are going to find out how we can basically correct our run on sentence. But for now, that is an example of a run on sentence, right? Because it is joined without an in punctuation. And then the next one says, it started raining. We ran inside, right? Which means that that specific sentence, right, it is joined with a comma, right? It is joined with a comma. But yet, if we look at that sentence, right, that is actually two independent clauses that is supposed to be standing on its own, right? So that should be standing on its own. And in order for us to fix a run on sentence, so how do we fix a run on sentence, right? If we were to fix a run on sentence, then it means that we need to separate the two, that run on sentence, one sentence, and we need to separate it into two sentences. So we separate it into two sentences. All right. And if we want to basically separate that into two sentences, then it means that we need to either add an in punctuation after the first sentence, and then we need to capitalize the start of the second sentence. And that is how we will be able to separate by fixing our run on sentence. All right, and here is two examples of how we can fix our run-on sentence. Remember, here we said, I knocked on the door, it opened. But now, if we want to fix that sentence, then it means that we need to fix that sentence by separating it, meaning that is our one independent sentence or clause, and this is our second independent clause, right? So, which means that we're going to say, I knocked on the door. There we have period. That's our one clause. It opened. That's the second one, and it starts with a capital letter. All right. And the second one is it started raining, comma, we ran inside. And in order for us to fix that sentence, we separate it into two sentences by adding our in punctuation after the first sentence. We capitalize the second sentence first, and then that is how we end it off. And here we have our two sentences. It started raining, period. We ran inside, period. All right. And then also when it comes to run on sentences, right? You can also fix a run on sentence, right, by rewriting it as a compound sentence. And remember, a compound sentence is where we add, basically, we use the coordinating conjunction to join our two independent clauses, right? So, in order for us to fix our run on sentence, we can fix it by rewriting it as a compound sentence. And a compound sentence, we said it is made up of two independent clauses that is joined by a comma as well as a coordinating conjunction. And a coordinating conjunction, it is words like and, but, or so. And if we basically make an example, right, we look at our example sentence now, it says, I knocked on the door, comma, and it opened. Because now we basically still have that one sentence, but now we have joined it as a basically as a compound sentence, right? A compound sentence is correct. It is joined by a comma as well as a conjunction, right? A run-on sentence, that is, we have to fix a run-on sentence. You're either fixing it by adding your period to your specific sentence by separating the two clauses, or you can fix a run-on sentence by rewriting it into a or as a compound sentence. All right, so now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, and we are going to, we said our chapter is sentences, fragments, and run-ons. All right, so now it says, we're going to the first one that says, is it a complete sentence or is it a fragment? So is it a complete sentence or a fragment? All right, and once again, we said a sentence is a group of words that forms a complete thought, and it has a subject as well as a verb. And we said a sentence fragment is a group of words and it does not express a complete thought. A sentence fragment it's either missing a subject, or it's missing a verb, or it is missing a helping verb. All right, so now we're going to our test, where we are going to say, is it a complete sentence or if it is a fragment. All right. So we need to say which is a complete sentence. The Junior Soccer League commences its new season in January, or layers and layers of cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, and onions. We need to select the sentence fragment. All right, and if we were to select the correct sentence fragment, right, and then we're going to say it is layers and layers of cheese, lettuce, tomatoes, onions. Doesn't say anything about it, just that. All right, we need to select a complete sentence. Which is a complete sentence? Remember, complete sentence has a subject and it has a subject and has a verb. Electric eels stun prey with an intense electric charge, or never spoke of Jodi's secret to anyone except for her. We need to select the correct, the complete sentence. All right, and if we were to choose the sentence, we can say electric eels stun prey with intense electric charge. All right. We need to select our sentence fragment, right? A sentence fragment wouldn't be able to produce red blood cells without a skeleton. Or option two, news reports alerted everyone in the area to the approaching tornado. We need to select our sentence fragment. All right, and if we select the correct one, we can say the fragment is wouldn't be able to produce red blood cells without a skeleton. Because what wouldn't be able to produce red blood cells? Right? It's like you're asking yourself, what wouldn't be able to produce it? All right, we need to select the sentence fragment, right? It says Africa is home to some of the world's oldest civilizations. Or option two, Trisha fulfilling her dream of hiking to the top of Mount St. Helens. We need to select our sentence fragment. All right, and if we were to choose the fragment, right, let's choose option 2. So option 2 is correct. All right, it says the reporter, we need to select the complete sentence. The reporter writing an article with questionable sources, or option 2, Shireen always enchants audiences with the raw emotion in a performance. All right, so it says, and if we were to select the sentence, right, we will go Shireen always enchants audiences with the raw emotion in a performance. All right, so now we're going to say, is it a complete sentence or a run on? And remember, we said a sentence, it is a group of words that forms a complete thought, and a sentence as a subject, and a sentence as a verb, right? And then we said we have a run on sentence. And a run on sentence, right? It is made up of two independent clauses that are joined without an end punctuation or with a comma. And we can fix a run on sentence, right? We can fix it by either separating it into two sentences. Once we separate it into two sentences, then we add our end punctuation after the first sentence. And then when we start the second sentence, we start with a capital letter, and it also ends with a period. And then we can also fix it, right, by writing it as a compound sentence. And when we write it as a compound sentence, right, and then it means that we, for example, we said a run-on sentence is made up of two independent clauses. So which means that if we want to write it as a compound sentence, right, a compound sentence is also made up of two independent clauses that is joined by a comma as well as a coordinating conjunction. And a coordinating conjunction is words like and, but, or, so, right? That is how we can fix a run-on sentence by either adding our conjunctions. All right, so now we're going to our test where we are going to say, is it a complete sentence? Or by saying, is it a run on? All right, it says, which is a run on sentence, right? We need to say which is a run on sentence. The restaurants in the vicinity are expensive. Hugo can't afford them. Or is it option two, the poems of Walt Whitman always inspire me? We need to select the option that is a run on sentence. All right, and if we were to choose the correct one, and then we will say the run on sentence is option one, which is that can be separated into two sentences, right? If we were to fix that run on sentence. All right, the next one says, we need to say which one is a complete sentence. A complete sentence. It says Mrs. Crosby rummaged through the medicine cabinet for the thermometer, or the Australian man designs yachts, he races them in international events. We need to select the complete sentence. All right, and if we were to select our complete sentence, and then we will say, Mr. Crosby rummaged through the medicine cabinet for the thermometer, which is option one. All right, now we need to say which is a run on sentence, right? A run on sentence. It says, grab another log. The fire is dying down. Or option two, in Japan, the Hashin Expressway actually runs through a building. We need to select the run on sentence. And if we were to select the run on sentence, right, we're going with option one. grab another log. The fire is dying down. All right, we need to select a complete sentence, right? A complete sentence that has a subject as well as a verb. And the complete sentence is our dog, Bailey, watches the mail carrier warily or warily. She sometimes growls at him. Or Chicago, Illinois, and Rome, Italy have the same latitudes. So we need to select the complete sentence. All right, and then if we select our complete sentence, we're going with option 2, because option 1 is a run-on sentence. So we go with option 2. All right, and the last one, we can say, which is a run-on sentence, right? That says, hail pelted the roof during the storm last night. Or option 2, which says, clean your camera lens, there's a fingerprint on it. We need to select our run-on sentence. All right, and if we were to select the correct option, right? And then we'll say our run-on sentence is option 2, clean your lens, there's a fingerprint on it. All right, so that is now the end of our lesson. In our next lesson, we will complete the next lesson, which is either the complete sentence, fragment, or run-on. But that we'll do in our next lesson. But for now, we focus mainly on, is it a complete sentence or a fragment? Is it a complete sentence or a run-on? And we said a sentence, it expresses or forms a complete thought. It has a subject and a verb. A sentence fragment, right, does not express a complete thought. And a sentence fragment, it's either missing a subject, or it's missing a verb, or it's missing a helping verb. And then we have a run-on sentence. And a run-on sentence, right, it is made up of two independent clauses that does not have an end mark, or it is just joined by a comma. And we can fix a run-on sentence by either separating the two independent clauses, right? And then the first, by separating it into two sentences, the first sentence, we need to then add our end mark. And then with our second sentence, the start of our second sentence starts with a capital letter and also ends with an end mark. And then we can also fix a run-on sentence by writing it in a compound sentence. And a compound sentence, we said, it It also consists of two independent clauses, but it is joined by a coordinating conjunction, a common coordinating conjunction, which is and, but, or, and so. All right, so that is the end of our lesson. Thank you very much, grade sevens, for joining the class. And I really hope that you're going to have a good day further.